I'm Tony, and today we're going to talk about the scant quarter inch. What is it? Why do we do it? What's the whole reason behind it, and why you should be using it if you care about perfect measurements on your quilting or sewing every time? Let's say you have two 2.5-inch strips and you sew them together using a 1/4 inch seam. Well, then after you iron it, whether you iron it to a side or open, you should have 4.5 inches wide now, correct? So 1/4 inch off of this one, 1/4 inch off of this one equals 4.5 inches. But whenever you go to measure it, it's not quite 4.5, it's less than that. But you did a perfect 1/4 inch seam. Why is it doing that? The math makes it seem like it should perfectly work. Well, the reason is in your actual seam. So let's take a look at your seam. If we take a look at a seam super up close, you see there's a little bit of a fold over in that seam. Well, that's what happens whenever you iron it. Whether your seams are ironed open, whether they're ironed to the side, it doesn't make a difference. Sometimes you get that little bit extra in there, and that's what causes it to not quite be the size it's supposed to be. So how do we fix this problem? We fix it using a scant 1/4 inch seam. A scant means that it's a 1/4 inch, just slightly smaller than a 1/4 inch. And what that does is it takes into account the ironing that you need in order to make it work. My pixel quilt patterns are a perfect example of this. Because we're ironing it to the side, you're getting perfect points every single time. But the exact measurements don't quite line up. So if you want to make sure that the measurements are perfect, let's use a scant 1/4 inch. So let's take a look at the ways that you can get a 1/4 inch on your machine. If you do your 1/4 inch using the 1/4 inch foot with guide, like I do mine, it's easy. All you need to do is, instead of having your fabric touch this piece of metal, you need to have it just to the left of it. So as you're sewing it in there, watch that piece of metal. Don't have the fabric touch the metal. You want to have it just to the left of the metal. And by doing that, you're doing a scant 1/4 inch. Now, by doing this, you may have to sew a little bit slower in order to make that happen. But if you're not quite touching that metal, if you're just to the left of it, then you're sewing a perfect scant 1/4 inch. If you have any other method of getting your 1/4 inch seam, whether you have it marked on your machine, whether you're looking at a mark within your actual foot, all you need to do a scant 1/4 inch is shorten the 1/4 inch a touch. So that means on your sewing machine, you want to take your needle position and move it slightly closer to where you're sewing your fabric. So you take your needle position, so you can have it centered to the left, to the right. So it's centered or to the left or right, depending upon where your foot is. But you want to move it closer to your fabric. So just a touch closer, and you're sewing that scant 1/4 inch. By doing this, you're making sure you're adding in that extra little space. So when you iron your fabrics, now it's a perfect 1/4 inch every single time. Your math is going to love it. Your entire sewing is going to love it. Now, this also works if you're sewing clothing, if you're concerned about perfect measurements. Now, a lot of people try to get by this by just ironing their seams open and pulling it as tight as they can, which may or may work in some situations, but doing a scant every single time, no matter what you're sewing, will actually make sure that no matter how you're ironing it, no matter how you're doing it, it's going to be a perfect seam all the time. And that's a scant 1/4 inch. It's that simple. Hopefully you learned what a scant 1/4 inch is and how to do it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video, follow my YouTube, as well as Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Twitch, Facebook, my Quite Nerdy Quilters Facebook group, and my live streams. So don't forget, I live stream here on YouTube as well as Twitch. Feel free to pop in, sew with me live, ask questions, and let's have fun while we're sewing.